I spent weeks planning a surprise party for my best friend, hoping she would finally feel special. But when the day came, she didn't even show. And that was the moment I learned effort means nothing to someone who never truly valued. I spent 3 weeks planning Sarah's surprise birthday party. 3 weeks of my I'll never get back, 3 weeks of pure, naive hope that I could finally make her feel as special as she always made everyone else feel. Looking back now, I should have seen the signs. I should have noticed how she never asked about my anymore. Should have realized that our friendship had become me giving and her taking, me calling and her barely responding, me making all the plans while she showed when it was convenient. But I didn't see it. Or maybe I did and chose to ignore it because admitting the truth would have meant facing something I wasn't ready to face, that my best friend since college didn't actually care about me anymore. The planning consumed me. I booked the rooftop venue downtown, heard the one she'd mentioned loving when we walked past it 6 months ago. I spent hours creating a guest list from her social media, reaching out to people I barely knew to make sure everyone she cared about would be there. I designed custom invitations on Canva, stayed until 2 a.m. perfecting the wording, the colors, the little inside jokes only she would understand. I coordinated with 23 people. 23 I sent follow texts, made backup plans for the weather, arranged carpools for people coming from out of state. I ordered her favorite cake from that expensive bakery across town, the one with the raspberry filling she'd been obsessing over. I even hired a photographer because I knew she'd want perfect pictures for Instagram. My boyfriend Jake kept asking why I was putting so much effort into this. She didn't even remember birthday last month, he'd say, and I'd get defensive. I'd make excuses. She'd been busy with her new job, her new apartment. Her new that somehow had less and less room for me in it. But this party would change everything. This party would remind her what real friendship looked like. This party would show her that someone still cared enough to move mountains for her happiness. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, reading through all the confirmations, making sure every detail was perfect. I'd spent $200 of my own money on this. $1,200 I didn't really have, money I'd been saving for a vacation with Jake. But it would be worth it to see her face light. Worth it to have my best friend back. I texted her that morning, "Can't wait to see tonight. Don't forget dinner at 7 at that new place on 5th Street. We'd agreed on this dinner plan weeks ago. She'd meet me there, I'd suggest we grab drinks at the rooftop bar afterward, and surprise. All her favorite people waiting with smiles and champagne and the love she deserved." She texted back 3 hours later, "Actually running super late today. Rain check, on her own birthday dinner, the dinner she'd agreed to weeks ago." I called her. Straight to voicemail. I voicemail again. I texted Sarah, "It's birthday. We planned this weeks ago." Nothing. I sat in my car outside the restaurant at 60:30 calling everyone on the guest list. "She's running late, but come anyway. She'll be here soon." My voice got shakier with each call. 23 people were making their way to that rooftop, people who'd rearranged their Saturday nights, bought gifts, some who'd driven hours to be there. At 7:15, I called her one more time. She answered on the 4th ring, and I could hear music in the background. Loud music, party music. "Oh hey, what's?" she said like she had no idea what day it was. "Sarah, where are we? Had dinner plans." "Oh god, I totally forgot. I'm at Emma's thing." "No, Emma from work. It's her housewarming party and it's actually really fun." Rain check on dinner. Emma from work. A girl she'd known for 3 months was more important than our dinner. More important than her birthday. More important than me. "Sarah, it's birthday." "I know, but Emma's thing is just, it's really good networking. No, for my career, I'll make it to next week, I promise." She hung before I could say anything else. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at my phone. Waiting for her to call back and say she was joking. Waiting for her to remember that today mattered. Waiting for her to remember that I mattered. The rooftop was a 40-minute drive in Saturday night traffic. 40 minutes to figure out what I was going to say to 23 people who'd shown, for someone who couldn't even remember to show for herself. When I walked onto that rooftop and saw them all there, her college friends, her work friends, her sister who'd flown in from Portland, everyone holding gifts and wearing party clothes and looking excited, I knew I had to tell them the truth. But I couldn't find the words. Instead, I just started crying. Right there in front of everyone. Heard in front of the photographer I'd hired, in front of the perfect cake with the raspberry filling, I broke down completely. "She's not coming," I whispered to her sister, and the words felt like broken glass in my throat. She forgot. The next hour was a blur of awkward conversations, people checking their phones, making excuses to leave early. Some stayed and tried to make the best of it, but can't have a surprise party without the person being surprised. Who can't celebrate someone who doesn't show for their own celebration. I spent first 203 weeks of my on a party for someone who forgot I existed. And that was the moment I learned that effort means nothing to someone who never truly valued. The photos from that night still haunt me. The photographer I hired sent them anyway, like some sick joke from the universe. 23 people gathered around an empty space where Sarah should have been. Me, red-eyed and broken, standing next to a birthday cake with her name on it that she never saw. I couldn't delete them. I tried. But my finger would hover over the trash button and I'd freeze. Maybe I needed them as evidence. Evidence that I wasn't crazy. Evidence that I had cared this much about someone who couldn't even care enough to remember. Jake found me on the bathroom floor at 2 a.m., scrolling through those pictures and crying. He didn't say, "I told so," but I could see it in his eyes. He'd been watching me invest everything into this friendship for months while getting nothing back. He tried to warn me, tried to point out how Sarah never asked about never initiated plans, never seemed genuinely happy for my successes. "She doesn't deserve," he said, sitting on the cold tile next to me. She never deserved the version of became for her. That hit different than I expected. The version of I became for her. The girl who would drop everything when Sarah called. The girl who made excuses for Sarah's behavior to mutual friends. The girl who twisted herself into knots trying to be the perfect friend to someone who barely acknowledged she existed. I started noticing things I'd been blind to before. Like how Sarah only called when she needed something. A ride to the airport, someone to vent to about work drama. Someone to make her feel better about her dating disasters. I was her emotional support animal, not her friend. The worst part was realizing how long this had been going on. How many plans had she cancelled last minute? How many times had I been the one reaching out? How many of my own needs had I pushed aside to accommodate hers? I looked through our text messages going back 6 months. The pattern was so obvious it made me nauseous. Me initiating 90% of our conversations. Me suggesting plans, making reservations, coordinating everything. Her responding with one-word answers or showing late or canceling entirely. Her sister Amanda called me 3 days after the party. "I'm so sorry," she said, and I could hear the genuine shame in her voice. I had no idea she'd become like this. The Sarah I grew with would never have done something so cruel. Did she even know about the party? I asked, because some masochistic part of me needed to know. She figured it out when I posted about flying in for her birthday. She called me Sunday morning asking why I was in town. When I told her about the surprise party planned, she just laughed. She said, "Get over it. Get over it." Like planning a surprise party for weeks was just some casual favor. Like spending money I didn't have was no big deal. Like my feelings were disposable. She's not the same person anymore, Amanda continued. Ever since she got that promotion. Ever since she started out with those work people. She thinks she's better than everyone from her old, including family. I wanted Amanda to be wrong, but the evidence kept piling. Sarah had posted Instagram stories all night from Emma's housewarming party. I watched every single one, torturing. There she was, laughing with people she'd known for 3 months, making toasts with expensive champagne, looking happier than I'd seen her in years. Not once did she mention it was her birthday. Not once did she seem to remember she'd stood someone who'd been planning to celebrate her for weeks. The worst story was the last one, posted at 10 a.m. Sarah doing shots with Emma and her friends, captioned, "New friends who actually get me." The twisted deeper when I saw she'd tagged the location. Emma's house was 15 minutes from the rooftop venue. 15 minutes from where 23 people had gathered to celebrate her. She could have come. She could have easily made an appearance, even if just for an hour. But she chose not to. She actively chose Emma's networking party over people who'd known her for years. I screenshotted that story before she deleted it the next morning. I don't know why. Maybe I needed proof that this version of Sarah existed. The version who could be so casually cruel to someone who loved her. My other friends started reaching out after the party. Word travels fast when someone shows their own surprise party that spectacularly. Everyone had questions. Everyone had theories. Everyone had stories about their own experiences with Sarah's new attitude. "She's been weird to me too," my friend Lisa confessed over coffee. "Remember when I got engaged last month? She didn't even congratulate me. Just said something about marriage being a trap for women who can't succeed on their own." More stories emerged. Sarah making comments about other people's choices. Sarah name-dropping her new work friends constantly. Sarah acting like she'd outgrown everyone who knew her before she got her promotion. The pattern wasn't just about me. Sarah had become someone who used people and discarded them when they stopped being useful to her image. I found wondering if she'd always been this way and I'd just been too blind to see it. Or if success had genuinely changed her into someone I didn't recognize. Either possibility made me feel like 3 weeks after the party Sarah finally texted me. Not an apology. Not an acknowledgement of what had happened. Just, "Hey, wanna grab lunch this week? I have some work drama to unpack." She wanted to use me as her therapist again. She wanted to pretend that standing me on her birthday, after I'd spent weeks and hundreds of dollars planning her party, was no big deal. She wanted to go back to our old dynamic where she took and I gave and pretended that was friendship. I stared at that text for hours before responding. "No thanks." 2 words. After years of friendship, after countless hours of listening to her problems and celebrating her wins and making excuses for her behavior, our relationship ended with 2 words. She never responded, never asked why, never tried to understand what she'd lost. And maybe that told me everything I needed to know about who she really was. 6 months later, Sarah's perfect news started cracking. I didn't go looking for this information. I'd unfollowed her on everything, blocked her number, deleted photos of us together. I was trying to heal, trying to rebuild the confidence she'd shattered when she showed me exactly how little I meant to her. But news travels in small circles, and we still had mutual friends who couldn't help but update me on the Sarah drama. Emma, the coworker she'd ditched my party for, had been spreading rumors about Sarah at work. Apparently, Sarah had been taking credit for Emma's projects, and when Emma confronted her, Sarah tried to get her fired. The networking party that was more important than our years of friendship. It had been Emma's way of building alliances against Sarah. The friends Sarah had been so eager to impress started seeing through her act. Lisa told me that Sarah had shown uninvited to her engagement party, spent the whole night talking about her own career, and made several comments about how traditional weddings were beneath ambitious women. "She's burned through every friendship she had," Lisa said during one of our coffee dates. "Even Amanda barely talks to her anymore. Did know she didn't come home for Christmas, said she was too busy with work, but Amanda saw her Instagram stories from some resort in Cabo with people none of the family had ever met. The work promotion that had turned Sarah into this version of herself, she lost it. Turns out when spend all time networking and taking credit for other people's ideas instead of actually working, people notice. Her boss called her out in a team meeting, publicly, in front of all those coworkers she'd been trying so hard to impress. She called me crying, our mutual friend Beth told me. First time she'd called me in 8 months. Wanted someone to listen to her complain about how unfair everything was, how no one appreciated her vision, how her coworkers were jealous of her success. She never once acknowledged that she'd been treating people terribly. I felt nothing when I heard this news. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even pity. Just emptiness. The girl I'd planned that party for, the girl I'd spent years caring about, she was gone. Maybe she'd never existed in the first place. The real gut punch came when Amanda reached out to me directly. Sarah had been calling her family, trying to repair relationships she'd destroyed while chasing her new image. She wanted to come home for Easter. Wanted to pretend the last year hadn't happened. She asked about, Amanda said carefully. Asked if be willing to talk to her. She said she's been doing a lot of thinking about her priorities. What did tell her? I told her the truth. That moved on. That seemed happier without her drama and that maybe she should have thought about priorities before she away the best friend she ever had. Amanda was right. I was happier. It had taken months to realize it, but removing Sarah's chaos from I had given me space to breathe. Space to invest in friendships that were actually mutual. Space to stop making excuses for someone else's cruel behavior. Jake and I had gotten stronger too. He'd watched me sacrifice so much of trying to maintain a friendship with someone who didn't care about me, and seeing me finally choose had brought out a protective side of him I'd never seen before. We're different now, he told me one night. More confident, less anxious. Don't spend hours analyzing text messages anymore, wondering if said something wrong. He was right. I'd spent years walking on eggshells around Sarah, trying to be the perfect friend to someone who couldn't even be a decent human being. Hurt, always worried I was asking too much, giving too little, not understanding her enough. The surprise party had been the culmination of years of me believing that if I just loved her hard enough, consistently enough, perfectly enough, she'd love me back the same way. But love isn't a transaction. Friendship isn't something can earn through effort alone. Some people are just takers. They'll accept everything give them and still leave empty, handed when need them most. Sarah texted me on the anniversary of her birthday party, 1 year exactly from the night she chose networking over friendship. 1 year from the night I learned what I was really worth to her. I miss, the text said. I know I messed, can we talk? I screenshot the message and sent it to Jake. What should I say? Nothing, he replied immediately. She had a whole year to reach out and apologize. She's only doing it now because her other options ran out. He was right again. Sarah wasn't missing me. She was missing having someone she could take from without giving anything back. She was missing her emotional support system now that everyone else had figured out what I'd been too naive to see. I deleted the message without responding. 2 weeks later, she tried calling. I let it go to voicemail, she didn't leave one. She tried again the next month, and the month after that, always around times when I used to be most available to her. Friday evenings when she used to call about dating disasters. Sunday afternoons when she used to vent about work stress. I never answered, not once, because I finally understood something it had taken me years to learn: some people don't deserve access to kindness. Some people will take love and twist it into something that serves them while leaving empty. The girl who spent 3 weeks planning a surprise party for someone who couldn't be bothered to show. She was gone. In her place was someone who knew the difference between being loving and being used. Someone who understood that real friends show. Real friends remember. Real friends don't beg for the bare minimum of human decency. Someone who would never again mistake her own desperation to be loved for actual love being returned. The last I heard, Sarah moved to another city for a fresh start. New job, new apartment, new people to impress until they figured out who she really was. The cycle would probably repeat itself until she was alone, wondering why no one ever stayed. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I kept one photo from that night. Not one of me crying or the empty space where she should have been, but one of everyone else. 23 people who showed for someone they cared about. 23 people who understood what loyalty looked like. Some of them became real friends after that night. We bonded over the shared experience of being disappointed by someone we'd all tried so hard to love. We learned to invest in each other instead. Sarah taught me the most valuable lesson of my, just not the way she intended to. She taught me that when someone shows who they are, believe them the first time. Don't spend years making excuses. Don't plan surprise parties for people who won't show for when it matters. Don't love someone more than they're capable of loving back. Heard, because effort really does mean nothing to someone who never truly valued, and the sooner accept that truth, the sooner can find people who actually deserve the love have to give.